Over the past 7 seasons, a stretch that included a trip to the Stanley Cup final and an NHL record-setting 65-win season just 2 years ago, no one, not a single team in the NHL, has won more games than the Boston Bruins. And now they're in serious jeopardy of missing the playoffs for the first time in almost a decade. Cheryl, is this the end of an era in Boston?
I do not think it's an end of an era. I find it very difficult to say those words, Gino, because when I think about the Boston Bruins, I think about a historic franchise. I think about players that have worn the jersey, players like Patrice Bergeron and Krejci. And if we were going to go to an end of an era, we would have went to a few years ago when they retired. How about the President's Trophy winners throwing everything at it, bearing the cupboards, and then losing in the first round? But this is a Boston Bruins team that still has some very critical pieces. Yeah, they may not be playing well right now. Let's talk about Jeremy Swayman between the pipes. But I think with those pivotal pieces, they can get to the playoffs. Listen, they find a way when it matters most. They started out with a dreadful start to the season. They found a way to get back in the hunt. They're 1 point back. Some serious injuries could certainly deflate that. But I can never count the Boston Bruins out.
Cheryl, come on. The goaltending situation. The Bruins decided to move Linus Ullmark so they could keep and extend Jeremy Swayman. Now Ullmark is hovering around 20th in goals saved above expected, lifting the Sens into playoff contention, while Swayman, he's 59th and the Bruins are plummeting. Cheryl, you can't tell me that wasn't a huge gaffe by the Boston Bruins.
Well, yeah, when they had a 1-2 tandem like that, it's hard to believe that they were looking to move Ullmark. But listen, Ullmark's lost 3 in a row as well, and he's been plagued with injuries. So the Ottawa Senators are going to have to lean on him. And when you go to Jeremy Swayman, listen, everyone has a time within a season where they aren't playing well. And Jeremy Swayman, a .916 save percentage last year, yes, he's subpar. He's an .898 right now. He can right that ship. I mean, he has the ability in the first year of his 8-year contract. He's got to find a way. He has to be a piece, and he can be a piece for the Boston Bruins. If he can turn his game around, find his form, get in a rhythm, I think they can make the playoffs.
But Cheryl, it's not just goaltending. They're also not scoring enough. Their goal differential right now is 25th in the entire NHL. They're a minus 26 in that category. Does that not tell you that this is an overarching issue with the entire team and that there's no single isolated spot where they're struggling?
Well, yeah, I mean, they have holes. There's no question about it. You can look at roster construction, Gino, and you can say, yeah, they've made some serious gaffes. There's some mistakes there. But they've got guys out like Hampus Lindholm who can move a puck and can generate some offense from the back end. I'm going to stare right at their power play as well. They're 30th in the NHL right now. But if they can get an uptick in that and score some more goals on it, you're going to start to see them elevate in different categories. You also can't forget they have a pure natural goal scorer in Pastrnak, who is having a wonderful season. He's got 28 goals right now. You don't have these types of pieces that can perform in the biggest moments and say they are outright out. That's why I consider them a playoff contender right now when you've got the likes of Pastrnak, Jeremy Swayman in the crease who can right the ship. And then, of course, you know, you still got pieces on the back end. McAvoy is out right now, but he is in his 3rd year of an 8-year contract right now. He's one of the top defenders in the NHL. So when you're looking at the back end right through to the offense with someone like Pastrnak, I don't think you can say they're completely out.
All right.
Come on, Gino, give it to me.
Okay, here's the deal. Brad Marchand's a pending unrestricted free agent. We know he can still play this game at an elite level. We know that if you put him out there as trade bait, you're going to get a pretty significant return. Maybe some young guys as they start to turn this Bruins ship around. Should the Bruins consider moving Marchand for some real prospects and draft picks moving forward, or do you hang on to him and extend him long term and it becomes a Bruins lifer?
I think if you're a GM, you always have to keep an open mind to what can make your club the best, because yes, they are in a bit of a retool right now and they've got to look at futures and how they can up this roster and fix some of those holes that you talked about. But I don't think Marchand's going anywhere unless he says, listen, I'll go for a few months to contender and I'll come back as of July 1st. I think he wants to be a lifer in Boston. And you got to face it, whether he's on your team or not, you don't like to play against this guy. There is something about him, as we all know, that edge, that grit. He's won a Stanley Cup. Even at the Four Nations face-off, you saw him, right? You saw those first 3 strides. Yes, he's aging, but he's a 20-plus goal scorer in this league, and when the timing is right, he finds a way to get it done. So I think you want him on your roster still. I think this team needs him, but also when you look at it, they're 1 point back of a wild card, Gino. They're still in this.
You threw out the word rebuild. I'm gonna bounce off that.
Retool.
When the cap. Okay, sorry, retool, not rebuild. When the cap was going up by less than 2% a year, retooling / rebuilds were real tough. But now the cap's going to jump as much as 25% over the next 3 years. How quickly do you think they could turn this around in Boston? And where do you think they need to focus their efforts?
Well, Gino, we already talked about the goaltending and how when you look across the league, there's so many inconsistencies. So now you've got Swayman, you've got your bona fide 1A. He's got to right his game for sure. There's no question about it. So that's staying the same. In and around the defense, you still have guys like Carlo. You know, Hampus Lindholm's coming back. McAvoy, Zadorov, who has not been good, right? But he is nasty. He uses his frame, and if he can get to form as well, this is a solid decor. You might want to look there, patching some of those holes. And there's no question about it. They do need more offensive production, in particular in their top 6, and they have to look down the middle. The Elias Lindholm contract has not been good, as we all know. A two-way center was expected to do much, much more. But I do believe that they can add pieces when you've got guys like Pasternak and Marchand in the mix. Even someone like Geeky, who's playing well right now, an uptick in his production. I don't know whether he'll get dealt, but at the end of the day, there are holes, there are patches, but I think they've got a piece at every position that builds a core.
All right. Cheryl and I are going to agree to disagree. We want to hear from you now. What do you guys think the Boston Bruins should do? Blow it up, which will be the right thing, because that's what I think, or just retool, which is what Cheryl thinks. We're anxious to hear your comments.